So I wanted to talk a little bit about Brendan Hines-Ike before we really get started here and all this. You've been kind of deep into your dissertation, and I know you've been
hmm
poking your head out at Austin FC here and there. And I just want to know from your perspective, like what you know about Brendan Hines-Ike, like what kind of things you've learned about him this year so far.
I don't know that I know anything specific outside of like what I've seen him do on the pitch.
Mhm.
I will say, Phil, I do have season tickets this year. So I have
Good.
like gone to a bunch of these games for the
Oh,
first
good.
time. He's just been a nice surprise
Mhm.
on a team where it doesn't feel like we have those a lot. So that's all that, I mean, I just think of him in a rosy way when you say his name.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been good. He's been solid. He's gotten a bunch of starts lately and looked especially good against Houston last week. Did you know he came late to camp?
No.
Yeah, he was an
Why?
acquisition fairly late. Wasn't his fault. Wasn't
Okay.
anything he did. Like just
Okay.
he got cut by DC in the off season and he was hanging around, he was working out, and Austin picked him up fairly late in the preseason, needing another center back. So through no fault of his own. It wasn't like he missed a bus or anything like that. It wasn't like he skipped the country. It was just he was hanging out and then he got picked up. But Josh Wolf has mentioned basically every single press conference over the last 2 months where he's been asked about him that he came late to camp. Like,
Why?
well, he got in late, is kind of his thing. So, he was talking about other players who came in at staggered points. He was kind of trying to make a point about preseason and getting the roster acclimated. But with Heinzike in particular, it seems to be the sticking point where it's
Like,
really
is
it's
it just
really
like a
weird.
talking point that he's landed on and he can't let it go? Does it feel like that's
Exactly.
you? Because you
Yeah.
definitely, I mean, I've experienced that where it's just like that's the thing that they refer to all the time. That's so strange. Because
Yeah.
if
And it's
anyone, I
almost,
feel like he's done fine
yeah.
melding with the
Yeah,
back
no,
line.
he's gotten a bunch of starts. I mean, there's nothing in his game that suggests that he's kind of behind schedule or hasn't picked things up or anything like that. But it's
Huh.
almost like it's an appellation now. It's almost like he is Brendan Hines-Ike who came in late to camp. And that's how we should refer to him in every kind of article that everybody does.
Huh.
Kind of like, Guillermo Biru, the 23-year-old.
Emergency podcast. Verde did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hurry up, shut up, hurry up, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast. We're here once again to talk about all the Austin FC emergencies and some tangents along the way. And this is also our opportunity to meet various members of the Austin FC media multiverse. So I wanted to welcome in today Jessica Luther, who has done some things for the Striker in the past, and as we mentioned in the cold open, is working on her dissertation. So welcome. How are you doing?
Hi. Thanks for having me. I am good overall, as well as one
Wonderful.
can be in these days.
Doing a dissertation.
Yes. Yes. A nice slow project that's very
Good.
big.
We'll talk about what that is in the segment later on. But what I wanted to do first, obviously, as we do, is get into our emergency segment. LA Galaxy is coming to Austin. They're really good. So that is kind of the immediate emergency that Austin FC is facing this week. This is happening Saturday. It is a Saturday daytime game, which is unusual. It's the first one of the year. So it's a 12:55 p.m. kick. It will be 10:55 a.m. by West Coast body clocks. So that could be an advantage. But basically, where we're at is that the Galaxy are really good offensively. 21 goals with 17.8 xg compared to Austin's 12 goals on 7.9 xg. So you can see that there's a discernible difference between those two. And both
Mm-hmm.
defense have issues though. So LA has 15 goals allowed off 16.7 x goals allowed, and then Austin 13 goals allowed off 16.9 x goals allowed, which means, among other things, that Brad Stuber is really good, but we knew that. So first of all, just wanted to get your thoughts on what we're facing and how this kind of holds up in the narrative that you put together so far for yourself this season. You said that you've watched some games, you've gone out to the stadium.
Yes. Yeah. So I've done a lot in person and I think I've seen every match this year. So you asked me to come on and talk about this, and I'm a good little investigative journalist. So I was like, well, I've got to do my job and research this.
Oh, cool,
And
good.
now I'm a little resentful of you, Phil, because now I'm super nervous about what we're going to see on Saturday. So I went back and I watched the recap of almost all of their games this season.
Mhm.
They're scary.
Yes.
There's four in the front are
Mhm. Yes.
terrifying. The three Ps and then Joveljic.
Yes.
I know Pooch is not technically in the front, but you know what I mean.
No,
And
I consider him part of a front four. Yeah, which is, as you said,
holy,
terrifying.
they are so good and they are
Mhm.
so fast. And I saw it like watching their defense. You see the weaknesses. I assume they're bad on set pieces. Like if there were stats, I know there are,
Yes,
but
they
whatever
are.
the stats
Yes.
are on that, I
Yes.
assume they're bad based on what I was watching.
Mhm.
But man, I just hope that Stuver is eating all of his Wheaties and really practicing all those minute reaction skills, because he is going to work hard. I mean,
Mhm.
the whole defensive back line will, but
Mhm.
he's going to have to stop some balls if we're going to
Yep.
have a chance here.
Indeed, he will. So you mentioned the three Ps. Of course, we're talking about, Ricky Pooch, who is the designated player number 10. He is obviously into the system a little bit. I believe he came over like summer 22 and has
Yeah.
been really good for them since then. And then, of course, Dejan Joveljic, who was basically kind of Chicharito's understudy and didn't quite click as a center forward with the wings that he had last
Oh,
year.
and now he's
But
got
then,
him. Oh my
yes.
gosh.
So in the off season, so because this is the thing you can do. This is wild. Did you know that in the off season you can get designated players who are transformational to your team?
See, Phil, I only really know Austin FC. So the answer to that is no, I did not know that. But apparently I have learned it in the last 2 hours.
Yes. So Joseph Paintsil and Gabriel Peck, $20 million in transfer fees worth of designated player winger. Paintsil in particular is darn good. Like
They are
probably MLS
so,
best 11
so
good.
good.
Right.
Yeah. Painsil is like, oh, I don't know. Good luck to us on Saturday. I don't,
Exactly. So
I have so many nerves about this because they're incredibly fast and
mhm.
very, very smart. And so, like, one of my now worries that I will be holding on to through the match is actually yellow cards and possible red cards. Like,
Mm,
our defensive line is very slow, and I'm very nervous about.
mhm.
And all the recaps I watched multiple of these men get pulled down on a breakaway. And I am now nervous that that is a real potential for us.
I didn't even think about the possibility of yellow cards and red cards as a result of trying to defend them, but now that's another thing that I'm
You're
factoring
welcome.
in.
You
That's
brought me
awesome.
on,
Great.
and
Thank
now
you
here
so
you
much.
have this. You're
That's
welcome.
beautiful. All right. Yeah. So also here's an odd thing. So Paintsil is 26 and Peck is 23. You can also do that. You can also sign players within that age range.
Young people?
Yeah. Yes.
Like in their
Yes.
20s?
Yeah,
What?
like not 19 young, not fake 19 young. Well, I guess Beer is
Yeah,
23 too. So
that's
Austin's
true.
beginning to do that a little bit. But yeah, so that's
Ugh.
that's happening. So it was kind of interesting. So today and we are recording on Thursday evening for Friday release. We got a chance to talk a little bit to Josh Wolf, at least members of the media did. I was still teaching. My semester ends soon. I'll be able to go back to those things in a couple of weeks. That'll be great. But they were asking a little bit about just kind of the preparations and all that, and obviously there's kind of two schools of thought, right? So, and let's put this to you first, what you would do, right? So there's either the opportunity to kind of do what happened at Houston last week, which is defend, kind of bunker, don't really worry too much about possession the way that Austin usually does, and try to do some things on a counterattack and sneak in a goal that way. And maybe you get kind of a repeat of what happened last week, or you try to match them and you go all out offensively. The
These are
face
my
you're
two
making,
options. These
yes,
are
those
the
are your
two
two
options.
options.
I mean, it's so hard to compare the LA Galaxy to Houston. I mean, sure, you bunker down, but the offensive output of the Galaxy is just on a different level than it is
Mhm.
for Houston. So the risk is
Yeah.
so much higher. And but then the idea of matching them, I mean, one of the things the Galaxy does beautifully, and it's because Pooch is in the middle in the way that he distributes the ball, their transition is fast. Like they can't just go. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
take much of anything for them to turn the ball around and get it in the goal. So, oh my God, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is why I'm
And
not a soccer coach. I don't
and a
like, I
couple of
have no
weeks
idea how you choose between those two things.
Yeah, and a couple of weeks ago, Wolf was talking in regards to San Jose that, oh, they're really fast. You don't want to be caught out in transition. That basically we're too slow to be able to handle that is kind of what he said.
Hmm.
And I think the Galaxy players are faster than the Quakes players. I mean,
Yes.
not by
They
much.
are
I mean,
so fast. Yes.
yeah. So there are those concerns, but it sounds like what's going to happen is that they do see kind of defensive weaknesses, and from what we're getting, I mean, Josh talked about Austin being good offensively, which the numbers don't necessarily bear that out, but it does sound, unless he's using the media as kind of a smokescreen, it does sound to a degree like we are going to try to maybe find opportunities and find weaknesses in the defense and try to attack. It doesn't sound like we're necessarily just going to, I mean, defense will be obviously an emphasis, but it won't be necessarily maybe what we saw in Houston.
Yeah, it's interesting because I noticed that they weren't great on set pieces, and I was like, oh, well, we got to get
Mhm.
corners. But I was like, can this
Yeah.
team get the ball down to get
Yeah. Yeah,
corners? Like,
that's the question.
uh,
Yeah.
this is the issue with like what Austin team is going to show up on Saturday. What are they going to be able to do? So it's like even the idea that, oh, we'll just do set pieces is like, oh, I don't even know if this team
Mhm.
can do that, which
Yeah.
is, I don't know. I'm nervous about this now.
I mean, they have a set piece
Those-
coach. I mean, they are working on set pieces, but it is, yeah, again, that question of
But you have to get a
can they
corner
get the
kick.
ball? Yeah, can they get it into
You
an
have to
advantageous
earn it.
position? Yeah, and
Yeah.
there have been games this
Yeah.
season where there have not been a lot of corner kicks, and that has been a problem.
Yes. Yes.
So
And I also noticed the Galaxy goalkeeper, see McCarthy, right?
yeah,
He seems pretty good too.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. He's not Stuver good, I would say, being
well,
biased.
sure, we're very
But
lucky,
he's
but
he's also, yeah. I mean, he did win an MLS Cup recently, right? So when he was with
right.
LAFC, and LAFC decided they wanted Hugo Lloris, the French
Hmm.
goalkeeper. So that is kind of a direction they went.
So
McCarthy ended up with the Galaxy, which is kind of interesting that happened. But yeah, he's fine. I mean, the center back pairing is a little elderly, we could say
yeah,
maybe.
one is
So
35, the captain, Yoshida.
yeah,
He's
Yoshida's
35.
35, and
I was
then
like, oh, he's ancient. Put him in the grave. Like
Caceres
that's
is
still
37.
over. Oh goodness.
So
Wow.
together they're collecting Social Security. If
Yeah,
you put
they
that
are
together.
in pro athletics. Okay, so that's interesting. That is, I
Yeah.
mean, that is interesting. And I
Hmm.
do think, if Sebastian shows up at
Hmm.
the level that he can play at, it's totally possible.
Hmm.
But we have seen this team be so flat. If they are flat at
Hmm.
all, ugh,
Yeah. And
good
we
luck.
have
I don't
we
know.
have seen that. So you were at the opener, right? Against
Wait,
Minnesota?
was I? I must have been. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because that was
Oh,
horrifying. They
yes,
haven't
yes,
really
no, I totally was because I ended up texting someone. I'm now wolf out. What is happening? Like
Okay.
I don't have a lot of feelings about Wolf in the way that lots of people have
Hmm.
feelings about him. But yes,
Right.
that match, I was
That
mad.
turned you? Are you still wolf out
Yes.
or okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, yes. I just
Okay.
of the, all the stats you hear about like when coaches get cut, he doesn't feel adaptable to me in a way that I would like. I feel
Hmm.
like he doesn't meet the moment as a coach.
Hmm.
He gets out coached a lot. But
Yeah, I've heard these criticisms. So I still maintain that I am narrative in. So I'm
yeah.
just kind of trying to watch and see what happens. But
Yeah, I don't have
s-
like I said, I don't have big feelings about it.
mhm,
I was like, what is happening? That was the game where I was like, this
mhm,
is so bad. But it's been different since Drewsy's been back. Like, I
mhm.
mean, he does matter so much to how
Yeah.
this team moves. And when he has an off game, you can tell things start to fall apart a little bit. So hopefully he also eats his Wheaties. Him and Brad get
So
ready.
that
That
is
would be very
that is your
nice.
prescription. Yeah, so the Minnesota game actually, so my wife went to that with one of her friends using our season tickets, and I was in the press box, and about 20 minutes in, I just texted her and I said, "Have more drinks. This is terrible soccer."
Oh,
And
it was
she's like,
so
even I know
ugly.
that. Because she's not a
Yes.
huge soccer fan,
Yes. I was
but she
with my friend
recognized,
who, yep. Yep. I was with a friend who doesn't watch soccer and she was like, "What am I looking at?" And I said,
why do you watch
I don't
soccer?
know.
This isn't fun.
I
So,
yeah.
a couple more
Ugh.
things about this game. So
Sure.
this was pretty funny to me actually. So they were talking about preparations in the
Mm-hmm.
match, and they were talking about, just studying what they do on offense. Because I mean, again, obviously they collect a lot of data, they collect a lot of information, they collect a lot of film and have their players watch it. So at one point, Wolf says, "Our fullbacks, they have iPads." So so
Yay.
you can play Candy Crush like you've never played before. And oh yeah, here's a highlight reel of the guy you're guarding. Good luck with that.
They have iPads.
They have
Put that
iPads.
on
It
a
was so funny
banner.
to me that
They
he
can slap
just
that
kind of broke
before
out with that
they.
out of the blue. Yeah. So that is something they did. And then he also, it's interesting, like he talked about, well, the 3-3 game was brought up last year. The most miserable Austin FC game I have ever been to. And he just talked about the teams being different and how this team, obviously 24 Galaxy is different from 23 Galaxy, and it's actually kind of more frightening. Were you at, or were you in
Are
the
we
vicinity of
different
that
though?
3-3?
Are we different?
That's the question. And
That's the
we'll get to that. Let's get
question.
to that in a second,
Okay,
because that
so
is
I had to look this up. I'm not like you, so I was like, I can't remember. And so I looked it up and no, so I am older than the center backs on the LA Galaxy. So I was asleep. I don't know how you were awake, Phil, but like I was asleep for that match. So I must have woken up and just watched the highlights the next day.
mm,
Cause that was the one that was like in the middle of the night.
it was the interminable rain delay.
Yeah.
And
And
then they
so,
decided to start it like at 11 something, and it ended, painfully like around 1:30. And I didn't leave the
yeah,
stadium
when I
until
was watching the
2:15.
recap, yeah, I watched the recap and one of the commentators was like, it's now 1:20 local time. And I was like, oh, I was definitely asleep. Like I definitely did not watch this. So
I was
I don't have
painfully
memories
awake.
outside of that.
Yeah,
Yes, I
it was.
remember this now about you.
Yeah. And this was a Sunday night too, right? So, and
Oh,
this is the one where like
brutal.
Wolf had to go, he woke up because he couldn't sleep and went to the stadium early.
Oh,
Which I and
yes.
Roto talked about that as a way that he was like trying to show Wolf's dedication. But like
Yes.
I was up at 6:30 getting a kid out the door to kindergarten. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
We're all
join
sacrificing.
the workforce. It's a Monday morning.
Yeah. And so like when I was watching it, of course, when they do the recaps, they always show you the starting 11. And I was like,
Mhm.
well, this is for us
Mhm.
not so different.
Yeah.
So, and theirs is so different on that, especially on the front.
So
Uh,
do you think there's a discernible difference between this year and last year's team?
our team,
Hmm.
I think, I mean, I like Rubio and I like what he
Hmm.
brings for sure.
Hmm.
It does feel like the back line is more secure, even though, oh God, I wish they were faster. I know that there's
Hmm.
like sacrifices you make when you get a faster back line versus being big and staunch and able to defend in that space. I I don't know. So I was looking at, so last year we had Drusi up front, and then we had Finley and Rigoni as our
Hmm.
wings, and I think that's kind of one of the big places. Obrion doesn't, okay, he makes me so nervous all the time. Like he has
Why's
such
this?
potential. He
Hmm.
has such potential and you can
Hmm.
see it. And
Hmm.
he also just is like sometimes he goes too fast. Like
Hmm.
he doesn't, and the team won't meet him there. So he
Hmm.
doesn't always have somewhere to pass it. It kind of just
Hmm.
goes to wherever. I don't know. I will say one thing I want to just because I watched the recap of the 3-3 game, the final goal for Austin in that game was Danny in the middle passing beautifully to Emmy, who was outrunning the defenders and then got in like from the left side, kicked it into the right side of the goal. Very similar to what Fodre and Rigoni did last week
Hmm.
in Houston. So I was like,
Yeah.
maybe we need to do that more.
Right.
Like, but I mean, Rigoni had an assist and a goal a
Mm,
year ago or in
right.
the 3-3
Yeah.
match. I I don't know that we're so different than we
Yeah.
were
Yeah. I mean,
a
I
year
think
ago.
Rubio is a definite improvement, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
excited to see how he's continuing compared to what we got out of a Rudy, especially
Mhm.
last year. So, I mean, obviously, Zardes, as distinguished a career as he's had, seems to be in kind of this super sub role now. So I don't know
Yeah.
that we'll see kind of many minutes, much impact from him necessarily. I mean, it still seems to me a team that's like maybe, at least two or three kind of quality attackers away from being a real contender.
Yes.
And we don't know
Yeah. I
what's going to
mean,
happen in the summer necessarily.
right. I mean, you can see it in their good moments. You're
Mhm.
like, the potential feels like it's there. It's like with Biru, you can really see it. And then he'll have moments where he just like totally, you're like, what are you like? Are you awake? And so
He's learning to
it's like,
play in MLS, I think is a lot of
yeah,
it too.
yeah, which
Yeah.
is
So,
totally, yeah, absolutely. But
mhm.
also just, we're like a couple steps behind in those ways that can feel very frustrating as a Austin FC fan.
Yes. So before we move on to a tangent and then another tangent, are there predictions that you have or kind of plans around the game or anything that you're going to do to prepare yourself for this unusually early,
I,
possibly scary game?
yeah. Well, I have to get up on Saturday and go run because I'm going to run a
Mhm.
half marathon next weekend.
Oh,
So,
again. Okay, great.
again, I know I was going to do that last time I talked to you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going actually to Cincinnati next weekend to run the Flying
Oh,
Pig
wow.
half. So I have to get up and do some miles just to keep my legs going. And then, so my actual plan is to take a nap and then get up and eat something. I'm going with my friend Amira.
Mhm.
And so other than that, I was like, I need to get my nap in because
Mhm.
otherwise I'll be too tired.
Right.
But I'm excited for the day game.
Mhm.
I think that'll
There
be
could
fun.
possibly be a weather delay, is what I
Yeah,
hear.
okay.
So there might be more occasion to nap. Maybe you won't have to get to the
That's
stadium
true.
right at.
I
So
do live very close to the stadium, so I am able to kind of last minute things.
so you could run home and nap if you really wanted to. Are you that
I could,
close? Like,
that's true. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty close.
okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. All right. So let's go to a bit of a tangent. So last time we talked on a podcast, we got together in the middle of what turned out to be a kit leak emergency, where we
Yes.
learned what the Dillo kit looked like through a grainy video game image. So that was
Yes.
fun for everybody involved with the league and the club and all of that. You said you were going to buy the kit, and I'm wondering if you ever got around to do that.
100% bought it the day it went on sale.
Oh, nice. Good. I
Yeah.
have not yet bought one. So,
I haven't actually worn it. My husband has worn it and
okay.
I think it looks great. I think it feels great. I think it looks great. I'm a
Mhm.
big fan of the armadillo kit. So
Yeah.
I thought about wearing it this weekend because he's not here. And then I got nervous that I would like stain it and have to buy another one. I mean, that's the problem with the light colors, but I think it looks good.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job.
It seems like it would be a good occasion. I mean, there's always the danger of staining it wherever you go, right? So,
Yeah, but then I would be the one doing it
right.
if I'm the one wearing it. So I don't know. I
There
don't
is,
know.
there are stain sticks. I mean, there are things you can do. There are preventative measures should that happen.
Maybe I should do it. I'm trying to
Uh,
remember like what I've worn when they won. It
mhm.
hasn't been consistent, so
Right.
it's
So
not
there's
like
no
I'm the
superstition
reason they're
involved,
winning.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
the reason. So I can wear whatever.
Yeah. I did get my wife one of the armadillo themed shirts because
Oh,
she's
nice.
an
I like the
armadillo.
armadillo. I like the theme. I like the
Yeah.
thing that they do in the stands at
Yeah.
halftime with the
Mhm.
armadillo
Yeah.
cartoon and
Yeah.
music. I think that
And then
that's
the
cool as
real,
hell.
yeah, it's fun. It's good. I like that a lot. And then they show the real armadillo in the stadium whenever the armadillo is
They do.
there,
They
which
do.
which
I don't know what's
apparently
going to
is
happen
named
on Saturday
yeah,
because
apparently named Speed Bump.
I know, I know. So Steph Canola and Mike Canola interviewed Speed Bump for Swoon Tower, if anyone's
Right.
interested in that. But what I learned from them on that episode was that when they do the sort of introduction of Speed Bump at the halftime, that is like his wake up because he's a nocturnal animal. So
Right.
it's not as upsetting as one would think maybe for an armadillo. Like it's kind of like, hey, it's time to get up. I don't, is Speed Bump going to show up in the middle of the afternoon on
I guess
Saturday?
not.
That's
If their
interesting.
armadillos are nocturnal, then we might not see an
Yeah,
appearance.
he might
That to
be
me seems like
sleeping.
that would be a jarring way to wake up, though.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean,
here's a lot of
absolutely.
lights and sound and 20,000 people.
But yeah, who
good morning,
knows? Like,
speed
who knows
bump.
what he's actually taking in? But yeah,
Yeah.
speed bump, the armadillo. I think it's good. Good job,
Yeah.
Boston FC.
Yeah. No, I think it's good as a kind of secondary mascot, little logo theme
Mm-hmm.
thing that we can have for a couple years. Yeah, I think it's a good welcome thing. So we also got some Yeti tumblers. This was actually for a raffle basket at our school. So
Oh,
it's kind
that's
of a
fun.
Matthew McConaughey themed raffle basket.
Oh
And so there
gosh.
were tumblers like the drink tumblers for like
Mm-hmm.
cocktails with the armadillos on those, and those are pretty great. I think we're eventually gonna get that into our mix in the house because those are
Yeah, I might
good.
have to go check those out.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we're done advertising Austin FC merchandise, but I had to bring it up. So let's get to a lot of a tangent. So I want to talk a little bit about women's college basketball, right?
Let's
So
do it.
because obviously well, not obviously to everybody, but obviously to you and me, that's what you're working on with your dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously there is a kind of renaissance afoot
Yeah,
with
we're in
women's
a
college
moment.
basketball. We are in a moment, and the various personalities that people are getting to know. My favorite in, kind of like the cartoon villain favorite kind of thing, of course, is Kim Mulkey.
Yeah.
It might be Kim Mulkey who won't test for COVID. So there's
Yes. Yes.
that was yeah, that was an interesting time that she was threatening the Washington Post on the eve of the tournament, and then it just turned out to be not a terribly unflattering feature. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, she is quite the character, but yeah, she's like a perfect sort of villain foil within the women's basketball community. And then
right.
she's like a peacock, like she wears those crazy
Mhm.
outfits that are amazing and terrible all at the same time, and is not is definitely willing to sort of be very brash in a way
Mhm.
that you don't see a ton of, or people don't expect maybe in women's sports.
Right. There's not really an MLS equivalent of Kim Mulkey, is there?
No, I guess not. No, I mean, there's very like, is there a Kim Mulkey equivalent in anywhere? Like, I mean, she's pretty singular in
Right.
how she acts and dresses.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you could have kind of a corollary with like a Jose Mourinho if you want to expand it out into world soccer, but Mourinho doesn't have quite the outfits. He just has kind of the reputation and the irascible nature, we shall say.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
So
no, she's definitely on the outfit front. She's singular for sure.
so let's talk about a subject that nobody has ever talked about in women's basketball over the past year. Let's talk about Caitlin Clark fever. And I'm kind of struck. I mean, obviously, she's been, kind of the catalyst for a lot of this excitement. Obviously, a tremendous player to watch, had a very storied college career. Didn't quite cap it off with the championship. Got to the championship game, but South Carolina was pretty bruising, I would say, as a defense.
Yeah.
So, but I was kind of struck by the parallels about Clark and what she might do in terms of WNBA and viewership, and then Messi and kind of what he's done coming over to MLS, and this kind of idea of putting a league on one star's back, even though there are plenty of other good stories in the league, that might get lost. I mean, Garber was talking a little bit ago about, oh yeah, I mean, Messi gets all this attention, but what about like Dax McCarty? And it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, if you've done a comparison with like Messi searches and Dax McCarty searches, I mean, I love Dax McCarty, but there's a reason that people are gravitating towards Messi, and it's clicks, it's interest, right? So just kind of
Right.
curious as to
Right.
what your thoughts are now as you're looking at this moment, because your dissertation actually deals with what UT in the 70s and 80s, right?
Yeah, so my dissertation is about the University of Texas women's basketball team in the 1970s and the beginning of the professionalization of women's sports, and using UT as like the perfect example, honestly. And so, but it's been interesting. I've been trying to write the chapter that is pre 1972, which is when Title IX passed, which is
Mhm.
the federal statute that sort of
Yeah.
mandates that you can't discriminate against women in higher ed and or in education. That sets off this great wave of women's athletics in the U.S.
Mhm.
And there's just so much before
Right.
1972. Like, we have an idea that like it all started then, and of course it didn't. Like, the
Mhm.
first basketball game ever played at UT was between two women's teams in 1900, right? Like, UT and the city of Austin learned about basketball through women, and we just have an idea of like that it all just began magically in 72, which is not true. And I feel that with Caitlin
Mhm.
Clark and the W, this idea that it's just all of a sudden, it's the hardest league in the world to make. Like it is an incredibly, it's small. There's
Mhm.
only 12 teams. It's very, very hard to make a
Mhm.
team. Like even some of the women who are drafted in the first round of this WNBA draft, there's a real possibility they will not be on a team this season.
Oh, wow.
That's how competitive the league is. So, and it is so good. So I'm excited for people who are new to it,
Mhm.
who are here because Caitlin is so phenomenal. And like, she is phenomenal. Like one of I don't know what it's like for other people, but one of my experiences with watching, and this is similar to Messi, like she will hit shots and you have to laugh because it's just like she hit a shot, maybe in the semifinal. Anyway, where like you couldn't see her, like she was off camera. She was so far back from the basket. And like that makes you laugh. You're just like,
Right.
what? And so I totally get why people are so entranced with her.
Mhm.
I'm always interested in like, it matters to me that she's a white woman in a league of a lot of black women and like who we attach ourselves to and blah, 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 blah. But it's going to be very fun to see her go up against the very best in the world who are
Mhm.
as good as her. People just don't know it yet. And she's paired with Aaliyah Boston, who was the #1 pick last year out of South Carolina. They're going to be the duo for the Indiana Fever, who've been this like sad team for a long time. So it's really exciting, the idea that like we're going to have this Fever revival.
Mhm.
I don't know. The league is really great. And there was this beautiful piece. I do want to mention this if you care about this at all,
Mhm.
on Defector, called Caitlin Clark and the Two-Way Street. And it was by Matreyi
Mhm.
Anand. It is so beautiful. Like I actually wrote her an email to thank her for this piece because it's really good on like, yes, the W is about to get a lot from Caitlin Clark. But Caitlin Clark famously, like if you watched any of her games, they love to reference this letter she wrote as like an 8-year-old and like
Mhm.
her dreams. It was like meet my amour, get my own shoe, be in the WNBA. And
Mhm.
so Matreyi's point is like, the W made Caitlin, and
Mhm.
now Caitlin will make the W, and then we'll do this all again in the next generation. But like
Right.
all the women who came before her have made this moment possible because she dreamed of it, because it was a possibility for her. And I think
Mhm.
that's really lovely.
Yeah. Because I mean,
So yeah,
how old is WNBA now?
it was 90, it came out of the 96 fervor.
Okay.
It's 97, 96,
Yeah.
97.
Yeah.
So it's almost 30.
Mhm. So
Like
that's, I
it's
mean,
getting there.
that's some longevity, yeah, for sure. Because
I mean,
I,
her whole life, Caitlin Clark, the W has been a thing that she
yeah.
could
So
dream
she's
of.
known that, which is remarkable, just kind of given where
Hmm.
some of the other, college pioneers and all that. So I mean, I remember Rebecca Lobo, and that was kind
Hmm.
of the first wave of that, right? So
Yes,
I
yes.
think, yeah,
I was
wasn't
born in
she?
80. So I was
Mhm.
15, 16, and 96. I actually
Got
I
it.
wrote a piece for, I think, New York Magazine about like experiencing that women's
Mhm.
basketball team as like a lanky, awkward 15-year-old girl. And
Right,
everyone
right.
was like cheering on these women who were taller and lankier than I was and like what that meant for me. And so, yeah, like I have distinct memories of before and
Mhm.
after. And it's very fun to think this incredible draft class that they just had. Like, I mean, what a run that they all just lived in this. Like this was just the ether for them is
Mhm.
really exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about what's gonna, I hope that the W can build
Mhm.
on what has happened in the college season.
Right. Do you think Angel Reese is on enough of a level? Because I know that they had kind of a thing going in college, and I know she ended up with Chicago, right? So
Yeah,
is there an opportunity for kind of, I mean, it's not quite a bird magic thing because I think Reese was drafted seventh, so she's
right.
maybe not on kind of that same tier, but I think there's certainly kind of an interesting possibility for this rivalry that was hatched in college, and they had these kind of famous
Oh yeah, they
or
did.
infamous, maybe kind
Yeah.
of on court exchanges, maybe that carrying over and being kind of another storyline in and of itself.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, Reese is on the sky with Camila Cardoso, who was
Hmm.
the giant on the South Carolina team. So like they're going to be really fun together too. And Chicago is in
Hmm.
like massive rebuilding. But I think Teresa Weatherspoon is their new coach, which I find thrilling. And I will just say, in my dissertation, one of the stars of my dissertation is a woman named Retha Swindell, who was the
Hmm.
first Black basketball player for UT. They actually have a mural at the Moody for her, which I saw when I
Oh,
was
nice.
there. So, and I was like, oh my God, I think that's Retha. She was at UT from 75 to 79. She still holds the rebound record for the women's team. When she was after she left, she went on to be a high school coach, and she was Teaspoon's high school coach.
Oh,
So
okay.
anyway, so I'm like, oh, Teresa Weatherspoon, Chicago Sky. So the Sky is in a real rebuilding moment after they won a couple years ago, and then just kind of everyone left. And so there is real chance here for Reese and Cardoso to come in and like really add to that team and help build them back up. So I definitely think there's space for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you expect there's going to be a lot more people? I mean, there are so many sports in my life. It's like hard to,
Yeah.
find space for it, but I'm definitely curious to watch a little bit
I
more
think
of
there
that
will
than I had.
be.
So,
I mean, the Dallas Wings and the Atlanta Dream both this week announced that their season tickets were sold out, which is
oh wow, okay.
phenomenal. Every away game for the Fever is like through the roof. They're moving. I think when the Fever goes to DC, they're going to move to one of the bigger arenas to
Okay.
accommodate the amount of people. So like
kind of a messy effect
certainly,
thing, right? So
yeah, and
yeah.
tons of anytime you get anything around women's sports and jerseys, like there's never enough. I know that like there was a whole thing with messy jerseys and Adidas and whatnot, but it's a common thing in women's sports. But already there's like jerseys are sold out. You can't get a Clark jersey until August. Like, so we're seeing like the groundswell. I just want to say, if anyone's listening and they care and they want to keep up, the WNBA league pass is like $35, $30.
Oh, wow, okay.
I might even be overselling it. It's so cheap. And so, I mean, I have an LG TV and I just have that as an app on my TV.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah.
And so you can definitely, in Texas, we have the Wings, but like the Wings,
Okay.
man, I'm excited about them. Like I'm been a huge fan of Arika Ugwale since she won. I mean, she won with Notre Dame, but she hit the buzzer beater in the semifinal and the final for Notre Dame to take those wins. She's been phenomenal. They have Satu Sabali. She's so good. I'm trying to think. They just brought someone else on and now my brain is blanking. But anyway, Dallas is a super exciting team. Like the last 2 years have been like just on the brink. So they're one of these teams that is fairly exciting if you want to join and like be a fan.
So Austin and San Antonio people have permission to like this team?
Yeah. I mean, what do we have? We have the Wings. We used to have the San Antonio Silver Spurs, but now they're the Las Vegas Aces.
Okay, that's what happened.
That's where they went.
Okay.
And they're a super team. New York is a super team. Seattle has a phenomenal team. They brought in some major people to shore up their starting lineup. And it's going to be and I just can't overstate, like, it's such a hard league to be in. It's so hard to keep your job. Like, you have to be a phenomenal basketball player to be in the W.
And I guess, with the teams, I mean, that seems like really analogous to NWSL, right? So, because like, obviously if you're in Texas, the only option is the Dash, and they just traded a very unhappy Maria Sanchez to San Diego. Yeah. So she had wanted that trade during the offseason. It sounds like they're getting kind of a solid center back in return with some of the piles of GAM that they got, because they have piles of GAM too. But Sanchez is with San Diego now, which is, obviously
I was a little bummed about that.
Fun, good destination, and that team probably got even better than they already are. So
I know.
Good luck to everybody else. Well, wonderful. Appreciate having you on today. And just where can people look out for you and whatever the dissertation might become?
If I'm on a social media platform, I'm there as Jessica W. Luther. I'm not really on Twitter. I tweeted a little bit this week because I was very unhappy with what was going on the UT campus, but that was my first time tweeting since September. So I'm really on Blue Sky, Instagram. That's kind of it at this point.
How is Blue Sky these days?
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Like when I needed to know what was happening, it wasn't on Blue Sky. Like I had to go to Twitter to figure it out.
Yep.
But it gives me a place. I mean, if you are interested at all in my dissertation, when I come across weird, interesting things, that is where I post them.
Beautiful. Okay.
On Blue Sky. The other day I was looking at a interview I did with a woman who was at UT in the early 70s. And she told me a great story about how she met her husband when they were in Gregory Gym, and he bet her a quarter that she couldn't hit a half court shot. And she said she had this great quote about like, she swished it and never before, never again. And then their first date was the men's UT A&M basketball game.
Oh, fun.
So whenever I find like little snippets, that's where I'm putting them on Blue Sky as I go.
That's
So I can
great.
share
That is
them
such a good
somewhere.
story.
Yeah.
Did she play it off like, yeah, I do this all the time, or?
She didn't really say. She went
Okay.
in the interview. She told me the story. She said, never before, never again. And then all she wanted to tell you about was the cute yellow short shorts that her husband was wearing. That's her memory.
Okay.
It was really lovely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the game. I hope it's not too miserable for us.
Yes, cross my
I
finger.
do
I'll cross
not I
everything.
do not have a good feeling about the next 2 weeks, but then I think things will even out and be relatively fine. So,
Yeah, well, good. Well, thanks for having me, Phil. It's always nice talking
absolutely.
to
Thank
you.
you. And thanks to everybody for listening.